Its quiet movement carries the power of an entire living world. One final boundary separates us from the hidden paradise below. Below the surface, the silence becomes a doorway. A single glance from this giant makes the open ocean feel intimate.
The dolphins move with curiosity, but never disturb the giant beside them.
From the smallest school to the greatest whale, every layer follows the moving sea. The giant descends toward a depth that sunlight can barely reach. It disappears into the blue, leaving one question behind. What waits ahead? New shapes emerge from below, gliding like shadows with wings.
Their movement turns the open ocean into a silent performance.
The smallest drifting life can summon the ocean's most graceful giants. Another giant follows a trail invisible from the world above. Its enormous body is sustained by life almost too small to see. Even this immense traveler depends on the gentle abundance of the sea. The ocean hides entire feasts inside water that appears empty. Where food gathers, travelers from distant waters briefly share the same path. Their ascent promises a moment the surface will not keep secret.
For one breathless instant, the underwater world rises into the sky.
Perfect coordination turns great speed into effortless motion.
Below the fast travelers, thousands of smaller lives move as one.
A school becomes a moving illusion, built from countless individual decisions.
The familiar pod returns, guiding us toward a brighter world. Every meter forward brings the hidden reef closer. Even the strangest shape in the open ocean has a purpose.
Rest and cooperation are essential, even in a world of constant movement.
A traveler built for distance enters the path ahead. Guided by temperature and instinct, it can cross an entire ocean. A floating island offers shelter where no solid ground exists. In open water, even drifting seaweed can become a safe beginning. For a few seconds, the sea releases its travelers into the air. A new generation enters the story beneath these warm waters. The calf's first ocean is protected by the body beside it. Every gentle movement becomes part of the calf's education. Protection can be seen in the smallest change of position. Familiar companions return as the deep ocean begins to rise. The color of the sea changes, announcing a world built in sunlight. At the edge of the reef, permanent residents patrol the blue. Their presence brings tension, yet the reef remains calm. New silhouettes rise from the border between reef and open sea. Their wings carry them toward the shallow gardens ahead.
A slower traveler now carries us into the reef.
The reef opens slowly, rewarding every second of the descent. Beyond the giants, an underwater city begins to rise. The current transforms the reef into a moving river of color. Power and beauty share the same narrow passage. The reef keeps its most impressive figures just beyond each turn. A giant visitor arrives for one of the reef's most delicate services. The smallest fish perform work essential to the largest visitors. A single coral head can serve an entire community. The true scale of the reef appears only when we enter it.
Every closer view reveals another color, hidden from the surface.
Different mouths unlock different resources within the same reef. Shapes, colors, and movements divide the reef without creating conflict. Inside the moving tentacles, a smaller story is already unfolding.
Even a motionless animal can transform sunlight into life.
The reef saves some of its brightest colors for creatures only centimeters long. Trust creates one of the reef's most surprising partnerships. What looks dangerous becomes peaceful when both species benefit.
A master of disguise enters the journey without announcing itself.
Color, texture, and movement allow intelligence to become almost invisible.
Another shapeshifter takes its place above the reef floor.
Its skin becomes a moving language written in color.
The reef's signals now expand from one animal to an entire group. Silence becomes communication when the body itself carries the message. The seafloor now reveals animals that live almost entirely beneath it. The current delivers food directly to animals anchored inside the sand. The smallest secret in the reef may also be the hardest to find. The closer we look, the more completely the ocean hides its wonders. Power is waiting beneath a stone no larger than a hand. Precision, strength, and engineering meet inside this tiny animal.
The reef's smallest travelers continue the journey for us.
Thousands of unnoticed workers keep this underwater city alive. The tiny details now assemble into a world of overwhelming color. What looked peaceful from above becomes endlessly complex within. The journey has moved from the greatest animals to the smallest living details. A hidden passage now leads toward the reef's most vibrant heart. Every turn promises a discovery more beautiful than the last.
Beyond this passage, an entire underwater city is beginning to awaken.
What you have seen is only the entrance. The true coral paradise lies ahead. The narrow entrance has opened into a city larger than it first appeared. Every tower is crowded with life, yet every movement remains perfectly ordered. The reef seems to breathe as each school rises for food and returns to safety. A specialized mouth allows these fish to reach food hidden beyond the reach of others. The next turn reveals a pattern so precise it appears carefully painted by the sea. Young reef fish may wear patterns completely different from the adults they will become. The reef's largest grazers now begin work that reshapes the entire landscape.
Their powerful bites gradually turn old coral into the white sand of tropical shores.
A busy service station waits beside the route of every large reef traveler.
The grouper temporarily abandons caution because cooperation offers a greater reward. Some reef hunters rely on patience and borrowed camouflage rather than speed. Inside these moving tentacles, danger for one animal becomes protection for another. Within this small shelter, the next generation is guarded one breath at a time.
For this father, protection means carrying an entire brood within his mouth.
The reef hides some of its most elaborate colors close to the seafloor. A brief movement above the coral becomes a private signal between two hidden fish. One partner watches for danger, while the other builds their shared home.
Their survival depends on constant communication without a single sound.
A creature smaller than a finger can vanish inside the pattern of one coral branch.
The reef rewards patient eyes with animals designed to resemble their surroundings.
Some small reef animals hide, while others advertise themselves with unforgettable color. A quiet reef crawler suddenly becomes one of the ocean's most graceful swimmers. The sunlight above is captured by living mantles spread across the reef. Even the coral itself provides shelter in exchange for constant maintenance. The current becomes a moving table for animals built to filter it.
The next partnership appears dangerous until trust becomes visible.
The moray accepts a service that removes what it cannot reach alone. Beauty and defense are displayed together in every extended fin. Movement can expose an animal, so this fish survives by moving almost not at all. A fish that rarely swims has learned to walk across the reef instead.
Another master of disguise enters, but this one explores with remarkable intelligence.
Every arm gathers information from the reef beneath it. Color becomes a language, a disguise, and a warning within the same living skin.
Signals travel above an animal almost invisible against the seafloor.
One effortless movement reveals how completely the ray had disappeared. A familiar traveler returns to connect the reef with the meadows beyond. The reef and the seagrass meadow survive because animals move constantly between them. The great grazers return, reminding us that every part of this reef is connected. One of the reef's most imposing residents moves with unexpected calm.
Even the reef's largest fish must pause for the smallest specialists. Shadows with black-tipped fins patrol the brightest edge of the reef.
Different sharks occupy different layers of the same reef boundary. Familiar shapes return, making the reef feel like a world with recognizable paths. A larger visitor now returns to the reef's busiest meeting place. The reef links the smallest cleaner to the greatest traveler beyond its walls. The current now begins drawing the reef's energy toward the open ocean. Powerful fish follow the same current that carries thousands of smaller bodies. The reef's colors now give way to a moving wall of silver. Stillness above the school creates a quiet tension without disturbing the reef. While the great schools move onward, these animals spend their lives anchored to one patch of sand. A tiny burrow becomes the center of an entire life. One coral head may contain more territories than the eye first notices. The reef is filled with faces that appear only when the viewer waits. Some reef fish prefer to watch the moving world from a fixed lookout.
An unusual body shape produces movement unlike any other fish nearby. And defense remains hidden until danger makes it necessary.
Bold patterns can identify a fish before its shape becomes clear.
Constant grazing prevents fast-growing algae from overwhelming the coral.
Different species now gather along the same route toward the open sea. As the light changes, the reef begins preparing for another rhythm.
As daylight weakens, new animals begin reaching into the moving water. The reef does not become quiet when daylight fades, it simply changes workers.
Familiar squid return as the reef's daytime colors begin to soften.
As larger fish leave the basin, smaller reef animals claim the foreground.
The shaded caves are filling with fish, prepared for the coming darkness.
The reef's moving river is now carrying us beyond the coral walls.
The underwater city falls behind, but its travelers lead toward a much larger world.
Something far larger is rising beneath the school, just beyond the reef's protection. The reef has delivered us back to the giants, where the next journey will begin. Beyond the reef, voices are calling from a world with no walls. Beyond the reef, voices are calling from a world without walls. The mysterious voices now take shape as a familiar pod returns.
Only in the open ocean does the true scale of these travelers become clear.
The giant is rising, and the surface is about to reveal its power.
One breath transforms the calm horizon into an unforgettable spectacle.
The dolphins answer the whale's quiet power with effortless movement of their own.
A single movement of the tail sends energy through thousands of tons of water. A younger traveler appears, protected by a body many times its size. The calf learns the ocean by following every movement of its mother.
Play is more than entertainment here. It prepares a young whale for survival.
Every depth holds a different journey, yet all of them share the same moving water. A faster giant now enters, built to cross the ocean with astonishing efficiency. Its speed is hidden inside movements that appear almost effortless. Another breath marks the passage of a traveler that may cross entire oceans. The water darkens beneath a body larger than anything else alive. No camera angle can contain the full scale of the largest animal on Earth.
Its immense body is sustained by creatures almost invisible in the water.
A nearly invisible boundary concentrates the food that giants follow. As one giant descends, another voice rises from the darkness. A deep diver returns from a world where sunlight never reaches. Its breath confirms a journey that may have reached more than a kilometer below. The next descent leads into darkness, guided almost entirely by sound. Above the solitary diver, a family travels by constant communication. For these whales, survival is built around a family that rarely separates. Another social hunter crosses the same ocean highway without disturbing the family below. Coordination allows a powerful group to move through the sea as one. Their pale markings record years of life written directly across the skin.
Every scar makes the older dolphins more recognizable to those traveling beside them.
But beneath the travelers, thousands of fish turn the empty blue into living architecture.
The shape changes every second, yet the school never loses its unity.
The ocean's fastest performers arrive beside a moving river of silver.
Speed becomes a form of entertainment when every turn remains perfectly controlled.
For a few seconds, the open sea becomes a stage, with no audience but the horizon. Another silver highway forms ahead, drawing the journey deeper into the blue. A hidden giant rises beneath the silver current, promising the next dramatic reveal. One carefully timed movement gathers thousands of small fish without disrupting the wider sea.
After the giant passes, the silver school rebuilds itself within seconds.
These powerful fish are built to remain in motion across enormous distances. long, streamlined hunter enters the frame like a blade moving through water. The blue opens again, revealing colors that seem impossible until they move.
A drifting patch of seaweed becomes a vivid meeting place in the empty ocean.
The largest fish in the sea returns, following food too small to be seen from the surface. Its enormous size is supported by patience rather than pursuit. 3 silent wings join the giant along the same invisible trail of food.
Each manta carries a pattern as individual as a fingerprint.
Beneath the passing wings, one unusual traveler pauses for a necessary service. The direction changes, and the warm tropical sea begins giving way to cooler currents. Migration paths overlap briefly before each traveler follows its own destination. The color of the water announces that a new ocean habitat is approaching. Long fins and slender bodies reveal animals built for life far from land. Different sharks divide the open ocean by depth, temperature, and opportunity. A volcanic ridge gathers one of the ocean's most recognizable silhouettes. The seamount turns empty water into a gathering place for life.
One extraordinary tale makes this solitary shark instantly unforgettable.
Another giant shark survives not by chasing prey, but by filtering the sea itself. Its intimidating appearance hides one of the gentlest feeding strategies in the ocean. A rarely seen deep diver offers only a brief glimpse before disappearing again. But the deep diver leaves as coastal travelers begin guiding us toward land. Cooler currents bring new colors, new fish, and a different rhythm of movement. The open ocean is becoming shallower, and the seafloor is returning. Rock, algae, and cooler light announce the edge of an underwater forest. One final giant marks the boundary between the open sea and the coast. The blue world now transforms into a forest, moved by every passing wave. Something is moving between the trees of this underwater forest. Beyond these moving walls, an entirely different ocean kingdom is waiting.
But the moving forest has hidden its first resident, inviting us farther inside.
The hidden silhouette becomes a seal built to move effortlessly through this underwater forest. Curiosity brings the seal closer, but the forest remains its world, not ours. As the seal rises, a quieter community appears beneath the canopy.
The nest may appear simple, but every cleared stone represents careful work. Small grazers can determine whether this coast remains a forest or becomes bare rock. Movement almost too slow to notice can still reshape an entire seafloor community. Beneath the rock, an animal protected by one heavy shell survives the constant coastal surge. Camouflage in this forest is built from the colors of the plants themselves. Two unrelated animals disappear by borrowing the same shape and color. A fish almost identical to the forest moves only when the current conceals it. The forest opens onto a quiet nursery where patterned sharks gather above the sand.
Their calm formation reveals a coastal shark, far different from the image many people expect.
The passing shadows awaken an animal almost completely hidden beneath the seafloor. With one quiet lift, the seafloor becomes open water. A massive resident appears between the trees, moving with the authority of age. Its scars record decades spent navigating this shifting underwater forest. Even the largest fish in the forest depends on smaller partners. A predator disappears not by changing color, but by matching a reef that never stops moving. The forest canopy redirects every school like wind moving through trees. Two agile visitors transform the quiet clearing into a fluid underwater performance. Their flexible bodies turn narrow spaces into effortless pathways. Beneath the playful seal, an armored resident begins its careful journey. Touch and chemical signals guide the lobster through places where vision is limited. This crab does not merely hide beside the reef, it carries the reef upon its back. Camouflage becomes a construction project, completed one fragment at a time. Cold-water reefs create color through animals rather than coral alone. The smallest flash of color may belong to an animal hidden beneath the forest canopy. Soft-bodied grazers move quietly through places protected from the strongest surge. One kelp holdfast shelters a miniature community beneath the towering forest. The giant of the forest begins life inside a shelter formed by plants. A bonded pair occupies the same den year after year beneath the kelp. Their intimidating faces conceal a remarkably stable partnership. A far more intelligent resident is watching from beneath the next rock. The hidden watcher expands into one of the forest's most remarkable animals.
Color and texture shift together, allowing intelligence to disappear against stone.
Each arm explores independently, yet every discovery belongs to one mind.
A body without bones can enter spaces that appear impossibly small.
The forest has hidden its most intelligent resident once again. Above the hidden octopus, a river of silver enters the forest. Three powerful swimmers arrive, changing the rhythm without breaking the calm. The plants divide the chase-like movement into a graceful maze, but no strike occurs. At the surface, another guardian of the kelp forest is waiting. Four sea otters rest above the forest they help protect.
A simple tool allows the otter to reach food protected by a hard shell.
Kelp becomes an anchor that prevents resting otters from drifting away.
By limiting urchin numbers, otters help preserve the towering forest beneath them. In the deeper canyon, an ancient shark design enters the forest. These sharks move through the canyon with a body plan older than the forest itself.
Color returns to the canyon through animals fixed to rock, and one ray resting beside them.
One slow wing beat reveals the hidden landscape beneath the resting ray. The shaded wall rivals tropical reefs without a single hard coral colony. A living net reaches into the current to capture food too small to see. A transparent traveler carries a faint rainbow through the green sea. The current leads from the dark canyon into a quiet gathering of drifting life. Time appears to slow as the jellies follow the gentle rhythm of the bay.
Beyond the kelp, two small cetaceans mark the approach of evening.
Their compact bodies carry them quietly along the boundary between forest and open sea.
As daylight fades, the forest gathers every resident into one final golden view. The forest does not sleep. It exchanges one community for another. Armored walkers and soft-bodied hunters now replace the daytime fish. The evening belongs to animals that can disappear between shadow and stone. The smaller octopus has led us toward a den occupied by a far greater presence. The forest's most intelligent resident is guiding the journey into darkness. Color disappears from the water, but the octopus carries its own changing patterns. Beyond the forest begins a world ruled by camouflage, intelligence, and changing skin. A second master of disguise has appeared beyond the final kelp stalk. The forest ends, and an entire kingdom of shapeshifters begins. Ahead lies an ocean world where nothing remains the color, shape, or texture it first appears to be. The forest has ended, but the ocean's greatest masters of disguise are only beginning to appear. Every meter of seafloor gives the octopus a new surface to copy. A second shapeshifter now reveals itself above the sand. Its skin becomes a moving message written directly across the body.
In seconds, an animal in full view becomes difficult to separate from the seafloor.
Its 7 distant silhouettes now become a coordinated group of reef squid.
Color allows the group to communicate without producing a sound.
The group leaves the canyon and enters a moonlit underwater plain. A protected ledge receives the next generation of reef squid. Each quiet capsule carries a life that will soon enter the open ocean.
One octopus carries the materials for its own portable shelter.
The awkward journey becomes worthwhile when open sand offers nowhere else to hide. Intelligence transforms 2 abandoned shells into a secure refuge. A different octopus enters an exposed landscape where disguise must include movement.
The octopus does not become another animal. It copies the animal's shape and motion.
A second striped octopus reveals a different pattern and a different strategy.
Every arm searches independently, while one nervous system coordinates the whole body.
A tiny octopus carries one of the seal's clearest warning signals.
The warning appears for only a moment, allowing conflict to be avoided. The next cuttlefish abandons ordinary camouflage and walks in full view.
Its deliberate steps create one of the ocean floor's strangest performances.
Pattern now becomes courtship rather than camouflage. One body can present different messages on opposite sides at the same moment. Larger cuttlefish now gather above a rocky meeting ground.
Visual competition replaces violence across the shallow sea ridge.
The same remarkable design exists in an animal small enough to hide beside a shell.
Precision becomes more impressive as the animal becomes smaller. As the sea darkens, a nocturnal squid rises from beneath the sand. Its compact body is built for a life spent close to the bottom. A few movements erase almost every sign that the squid is present. Transparency offers camouflage where there is no rock, sand, or coral to copy.
Even body angle becomes part of the squid's disguise in open water.
A reflective surface replaces transparency as the light continues to fade. The squid controls thousands of color cells with extraordinary precision. One reflective traveler becomes part of a wider moving group. The group turns together, but every body carries an individual signal. In darker water, living light replaces the colors created by sunlight. Thousands of controlled lights turn the darkness into a living night sky. A solitary deep-sea squid carries a coiled shell hidden inside its body. Buoyancy allows this tiny animal to remain suspended far above the seafloor. This shell is not a permanent home, but a nursery created by the female herself. A fragile structure protects developing eggs in the moving open ocean. An ancient shelled relative now climbs from the darkness toward the reef.
Its chambered shell controls buoyancy through a design preserved across immense spans of time. And
three ancient travelers rise together as the night begins to weaken.
Daylight sends these nocturnal wanderers back toward the deeper reef. With returning light, camouflage becomes colorful once again. One arm explores a space the entire body does not need to enter.
Even neighboring octopuses carry identities written across different skin patterns.
The surrounding reef controls which colors become useful from one moment to the next.
The journey returns to shallow water, where squid signals shine beneath the morning sun.
every squid sends a private message while remaining part of the group.
A hidden squid rises from beneath the same sand crossed by the group above.
compact body allows this squid to remain close to shelter.
The animal disappears, but the journey continues toward deeper blue water.
The 7 squid return, creating a familiar path through the changing habitat. The journey reconnects with the giant octopus that first led us beyond the kelp. The guide returns to the seafloor, carrying the story toward another hidden community. An armored pair of eyes watches the octopus from beneath the next stone. As the octopus disappears, an entirely different body design takes control of the frame. The soft-bodied kingdom gives way to animals protected by armor. Claws, shells, and antennae now replace flexible arms and changing skin.
Beyond the cephalopods lies a kingdom built from armor, claws, and extraordinary partnerships. The first armored giant has appeared, but countless others are still hidden ahead.
The forest has ended, but the ocean's greatest masters of disguise are only beginning to appear. Every meter of seafloor gives the octopus a new surface to copy. A second shapeshifter now reveals itself above the sand.
Its skin becomes a moving message, written directly across the body.
In seconds, an animal in full view becomes difficult to separate from the seafloor. 7 distant silhouettes now become a coordinated group of reef squid.
Color allows the group to communicate without producing a sound.
The group leaves the canyon and enters a moonlit underwater plain. A protected ledge receives the next generation of reef squid. Each quiet capsule carries a life that will soon enter the open ocean.
One octopus carries the materials for its own portable shelter.
The awkward journey becomes worthwhile when open sand offers nowhere else to hide. Intelligence transforms 2 abandoned shells into a secure refuge. A different octopus enters an exposed landscape where disguise must include movement.
The octopus does not become another animal. It copies the animal's shape and motion.
A second striped octopus reveals a different pattern and a different strategy.
Every arm searches independently, while one nervous system coordinates the whole body.
A tiny octopus carries one of the sea's clearest warning signals.
The warning appears for only a moment, allowing conflict to be avoided.
The next cuttlefish abandons ordinary camouflage and walks in full view.
Its deliberate steps create one of the ocean floor's strangest performances.
Pattern now becomes courtship rather than camouflage.
One body can present different messages on opposite sides at the same moment.
Larger cuttlefish now gather above a rocky meeting ground.
Visual competition replaces violence across the shallow sea ridge.
The same remarkable design exists in an animal, small enough to hide beside a shell.
Precision becomes more impressive as the animal becomes smaller. As the sea darkens, a nocturnal squid rises from beneath the sand. Its compact body is built for a life spent close to the bottom. A few movements erase almost every sign that the squid is present. Transparency offers camouflage where there is no rock, sand, or coral to copy. Even body angle becomes part of the squid's disguise in open water.
A reflective surface replaces transparency as the light continues to fade.
The squid controls thousands of color cells with extraordinary precision. One reflective traveler becomes part of a wider moving group. The group turns together, but every body carries an individual signal. In darker water, living light replaces the colors created by sunlight. Thousands of controlled lights turn the darkness into a living night sky. A solitary deep-sea squid carries a coiled shell hidden inside its body. Buoyancy allows this tiny animal to remain suspended far above the seafloor. This shell is not a permanent home, but a nursery created by the female herself. A fragile structure protects developing eggs in the moving open ocean. An ancient shelled relative now climbs from the darkness toward the reef.
Its chambered shell controls buoyancy through a design preserved across immense spans of time.
Three ancient travelers rise together as the night begins to weaken.
Daylight sends these nocturnal wanderers back toward the deeper reef. With returning light, camouflage becomes colorful once again. One arm explores a space the entire body does not need to enter. Even neighboring octopuses carry identities written across different skin patterns. The surrounding reef controls which colors become useful from one moment to the next.
The journey returns to shallow water, where squid signals shine beneath the morning sun.
Every squid sends a private message while remaining part of the group.
A hidden squid rises from beneath the same sand crossed by the group above. A compact body allows this squid to remain close to shelter.
The animal disappears, but the journey continues toward deeper blue water.
The 7 squid return, creating a familiar path through the changing habitat. The journey reconnects with the giant octopus that first led us beyond the kelp. The guide returns to the seafloor, carrying the story toward another hidden community.
An armored pair of eyes watches the octopus from beneath the next stone.
As the octopus disappears, an entirely different body design takes control of the frame. The soft-bodied kingdom gives way to animals protected by armor. Claws, shells, and antennae now replace flexible arms and changing skin. Beyond the cephalopods lies a kingdom built from armor, claws, and extraordinary partnerships. The first armored giant has appeared, but countless others are still hidden ahead.
The first armored giant has appeared,
but the seafloor is still hiding countless others.
Long antennae allow the lobster to explore a world where visibility changes with every rock.
One solitary traveler becomes part of a migration shaped by instinct and the moving sea.
By following the animal ahead, the group crosses exposed seafloor with greater security.
A different lobster survives by becoming nearly indistinguishable from the seafloor.
Its armor is shaped for concealment rather than display.
The armored world is also built upon partnerships that cross species boundaries.
The grouper accepts a service that removes what its own body cannot reach.
One partner watches the open sea while the other maintains their shared shelter.
Their silent communication keeps construction and security perfectly coordinated.
The most visually complex eyes in this reef belong to an animal hidden beneath one stone.
Vision, precision, and strength are concentrated inside a body small enough to disappear underground.
This crab carries living defenses instead of relying upon its shell alone. A partnership turns two tiny anemones into portable protection.
The same moving water that bends the anemone also delivers food to the crab beneath it.
Instead of changing its own color, this crab carries the colors of the reef.
Camouflage becomes a construction process, completed piece by piece.
A body shaped like the coral itself becomes nearly impossible to separate from the host. Movement briefly exposes the camouflage before the crab disappears again. Beyond the ridge, darkness has created an oasis powered by the heat of the earth.
A tiny passenger crosses the reef upon a much larger moving host.
Every species occupies a narrow distance from heat that can sustain life or destroy it. Transport and feeding are combined within one quiet partnership. These worms survive without sunlight, mouths, or conventional digestive systems. One of the reef's most striking pairs now enters the armored kingdom.
Internal bacteria convert chemical energy into the food these animals cannot gather for themselves.
Their vivid appearance conceals a highly specialized way of life.
The shrimp remain close enough to use chemical energy, but far enough to avoid lethal heat. Shelter can exist inside a forest of dangerous spines.
Hair-like structures upon the claws support bacteria that help feed the crab.
The shrimp navigate a shelter that few other animals can enter safely. A few meters of distance transform the vent from a shrimp habitat into a mussel community. Another crab finds protection by living where movement requires perfect precision. The mussels gain energy through microscopic partners hidden inside their tissues.
Transparency becomes the most effective camouflage upon a pale living host.
A fixed perch turns the moving sea into a continuous source of drifting food.
A body that allows light to pass through leaves almost no shadow behind. Minerals carried from beneath the crust build this chimney one fragile layer at a time. An almost weightless-looking body is perfectly adapted to life upon the thinnest branches. The plume carries heat and minerals upward, but life survives only along its cooler margins. One solitary climber gives way to thousands of tiny swimmers gathered in shadow. A temperature boundary invisible from afar organizes the entire community. The cave becomes a nursery formed from thousands of nearly transparent bodies.
The same current carries the journey from coral shadow into a sunlit sea meadow. Armored segments allow this worm to move across unstable mineral surfaces. Small cleaners work across the meadow, one blade at a time.
A larger shrimp enters the meadow with a body built for both walking and sudden swimming. One rapid tail movement turns a bottom walker into a powerful swimmer.
A finned octopus now connects the crowded oasis to the nearly empty plain beyond.
As daylight weakens, hidden shrimp begin rising from beneath the meadow. Slow fin movements carry the octopus across a landscape divided by heat and chemistry.
Night activity begins before the last daylight has completely disappeared.
The meadow opens toward an estuary where a crab has evolved to swim.
Slow-growing coral creates shelter in water far removed from sunlight and heat.
Paddle-shaped legs allow this crab to cross water that would stop most bottom walkers. Unequal claws reveal tools adapted for different tasks.
Long arms lift the sea star above the sediment where drifting food is easier to reach. Heavy armor offers protection, but the crab still chooses shelter whenever possible.
The armored journey reaches the boundary where ocean and land exchange control. Every wave briefly changes the crab's territory from land back into sea. One oversized claw transforms communication into a visual display across the mudflat. Signals travel across the flat long before the returning tide reaches each burrow. An armored design older than the dinosaurs enters the shallow sea. Their ancient form survives because it remains remarkably effective. Cooler water introduces a crab built for broad, sandy coastal plains.
Related tube worms survive here through chemical partnerships without depending upon volcanic heat.
A shallow layer of sand turns armor into camouflage.
Different claws divide the work of crushing, cutting, and exploration.
A rare natural color variation makes one familiar body appear completely different.
The dense brine creates a chemical boundary that many pelagic animals, like these jellyfish, cannot cross.
The unusual color changes appearance, but not the animal's anatomy or behavior. Life concentrates along the narrow boundary between usable ocean water and hostile brine. Long-legged crabs now appear across a colder, deeper plain. A fish patrols the boundary without entering the chemically dangerous water below. A wide seafloor allows each crab to maintain its own path. The remains of one ocean giant become an island of life for decades.
Heavier armor now replaces the delicate legs of the snow crabs.
Specialized worms extract nutrients from bone, without a mouth or digestive tract.
Every step carries a heavily armored body across unstable ground. Tiny crustaceans recycle the remaining organic material hidden within the bones.
The silhouette from the opening now becomes the largest crab in this journey.
A larger scavenger searches the whale fall with movements designed to conserve energy.
Its extraordinary span is created by legs, not by an oversized body.
A heavy shadow approaches an oasis built from the remains of another giant.
The largest crab leads directly to one of the smallest lobster-like residents of the deep.
Slow movement allows this deep water shark to cross enormous territories with limited energy.
A fixed perch turns the slow current into a continuous source of food.
Grenadiers patrol the plain, where every edible particle is valuable. The armored journey reaches a habitat powered without sunlight.
Modified fins allow this fish to wait above the bottom instead of swimming continuously.
Bacteria growing upon the claws help sustain life beside the vent. The seafloor now falls into a trench deeper than the surrounding abyss. Shrimp gather where chemical energy replaces the sunlight of the upper sea. Increasing pressure and decreasing food reduce the number of animals with every meter. Life survives by remaining close to warmth without entering water that is too hot. Small crustaceans remain among the most successful animals in the deepest ocean. Far from the vents, a giant relative of shoreline isopods crosses the abyss.
A soft body survives crushing pressure by containing almost no rigid internal space.
In the food-poor abyss, every movement must conserve energy. Even inside the trench, a drifting jelly follows particles descending from the upper ocean. Even ancient remains become islands of energy upon the deep sea floor. Tiny moving hairs turn the weakest available light into a brief rainbow. A colony of specialized bodies drifts where no single animal could perform every task alone.
The armored community now leads toward a water column where the seafloor begins to disappear.
Long filaments explore the water below, while the squid conserves energy above the slope. The journey leaves the bottom and enters a drifting world of tiny crustaceans. A familiar finned octopus reappears in one of the deepest habitats on Earth. Each krill is small, but together they support some of the largest animals on Earth. Pale snailfish reveal how vertebrate life has adapted to the Hadal depths. A flash of living light creates a momentary shield in the darkness.
Soft bones and pressure-stable chemistry allow these fish to survive where most vertebrates cannot.
Night draws small crustaceans upward from depths that daylight keeps hidden. At this pressure and depth, the wall is shaped more by geology than by large living colonies. The armored kingdom fades beneath us as new lights appear in the ocean ahead. A rising current begins carrying the journey away from the trench. The first glowing fish have entered the darkness, but the full twilight world remains concealed. The darkness slowly weakens as the current climbs toward colder northern seas. Living lights now replace the colors that sunlight created above. One of the longest-lived vertebrates enters the current, leading toward polar water. The sea has exchanged armor for light, and the next kingdom is waiting beyond visibility. A cold water jelly marks the approach of an ocean shaped by ice. A transparent head has appeared for an instant, promising a world stranger than everything above. Ice crystals and distant voices announce a completely different world above. Every distant light may belong to an animal the surface world rarely sees. The ascent ends beneath a ceiling formed from frozen ocean.
Beyond this final glow lies an ocean world that creates its own light.
The first pulse of living light opens a world that sunlight never reaches. Beneath the ice, giants, hunters, and entire hidden gardens are waiting in the cold blue silence. The hidden giant is a bowhead whale, perfectly adapted to a sea sealed by ice. Its glow is not decoration, but a tool refined by life in darkness. And its enormous head can break through young ice when open water is scarce. Below the jelly, thousands of small fish carry patterns of light along their bodies. And a body built for cold carries the record of a very long life. One small opening can become a vital doorway for an animal that must breathe air.
A mirrored body and carefully placed lights help erase the fish's shadow from below.
A young whale begins life inside one of the harshest oceans on Earth. The strange, transparent head now reveals eyes designed to search the water above. Sound travels far beneath the ice, connecting whales separated by great distances.
Movable eyes allow the barrel eye to search above and then examine what lies directly ahead.
A pod of narwhals appears, led by one of the ocean's most unusual teeth. What appears to be one animal is actually a colony of bodies working together.
The tusk is an enlarged tooth filled with sensory connections to the surrounding sea.
Each section performs a different task, yet none can survive alone. Moving through fractured ice requires memory, communication, and precise coordination. Tiny moving hairs divide the available light into a faint, traveling rainbow. A new pod enters the under-ice world with voices among the most varied in the ocean. Another colony enters, forming a hollow living tube from hundreds of individual animals.
Flexible necks and complex calls help belugas navigate a changing frozen maze.
One signal can spread through the colony like a slow wave of living light. A ringed seal depends upon breathing holes it maintains throughout the frozen season. A rising field of small squid transforms the darkness into a moving constellation.
The seal keeps this opening usable even as the ocean surface freezes around it.
Where hiding places do not exist, transparency becomes the safest disguise. Small polar cod form a crucial link between microscopic life and the region's largest predators. One squid avoids light, while another redirects it across a reflective body. The polar food web begins with microscopic algae growing inside and beneath the ice. Thousands of controlled pigment cells allow the skin to become an active display.
Small crustaceans transfer energy from the ice itself into the wider ocean.
Its dramatic name hides an animal adapted to conserve energy rather than pursue prey.
A tiny swimming snail moves through the polar sea with the appearance of wings. A threatening shape is created to prevent conflict before it begins.
The faint rainbow is created by moving hairs, not by artificial light.
A nearly black body carries light that most other animals cannot detect.
One of the longest-lived vertebrates moves almost silently beneath the frozen ocean.
Red light allows the dragonfish to search without revealing itself to most nearby prey.
A heavy surface animal becomes surprisingly controlled